Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with the Hurricane Outlook and discussion for September 8th, 2021, around 3:40 p.m. Eastern Time. Not too much to talk about today, but a look at a new storm that could be forming very shortly off the Florida Gulf Coast, and a look at Hurricane Larry, which could be approaching Bermuda and the Atlantic Canada region within the next several days. So it's going to jump straight into everything. Taking a wide look across the tropical Atlantic this afternoon, we have a few systems to kind of keep our eye on. First of all, starting from west to east, we have Invest Area 91L. This now has an 80% chance of developing over the next 48 hours before this moves inland sometime tonight or early tomorrow morning. We also have powerful Hurricane Larry out here in the central North Atlantic, and this will be continuing to move generally off towards the west-northwest during the next several days, and then eventually turn eastward as it gets pulled out to sea here. We do have a tropical storm warning in effect for the island here of Bermuda, and a new tropical wave coming off the coast of Africa, which we'll have to kind of keep our eyes on, but this isn't really expected to do a whole lot, but we'll be watching this over the next several days. We can see this here reflected from Hurricane Larry in the 5-day tropical, or the 5-day outlook here from the National Hurricane Center. Sustained winds right now have come down just a little bit to 110 miles per hour, moving towards the northwest at 13. There's a tropical storm warning for the island of Bermuda. Again, tropical storm conditions could be impacting the island within the next 24 to 36 hours. Again, this will be moving to the northwest tomorrow, and then eventually by late tomorrow night into Friday, this will be turning towards the northeast, and eventually this could impact portions of the Canadian Maritimes and Atlantic Canada over here. Again, the main threats from this will be gusty winds, heavy rainfall, and there could still be some surge problems by the time this thing gets up here. Again, this is a pretty powerful system, and will be transitioning to a very powerful upper level system by this time as it gets near Greenland. So there still could be some impacts from that. We can take a look here at the visible satellite imagery. And what we noticed today is that the storm is more disheveled than it was during the last several days. A large part of this is because the upper ocean heat content in this part of the world is not particularly high right now, and it's pretty low actually, and it's going to be getting lower during the next several days or so. What we notice is that, again, there is this deep convective bursts that are continuing to rotate around, continuing a healthy inner core structure, but we notice that, again, there is some pretty solid dry air on the southern side of it. And if we kind of take a look here at the visible here, or take a look here really at the water vapor satellite imagery, we noticed today that, again, the shear direction is now beginning to lessen out of the southwest. Like we talked about yesterday, a lot of the outflow was not able to expand on the west and southwest side. Today that's changed, where we have outflow expanding on the south and also the western sides. But we notice where the outflow is lacking is on the kind of northeast and eastern side, and this is because we have this building area here, this building ridge, and again, the wind direction here is different, and because of that, again, the outflow is not able to expand beyond this point here, so it's kind of getting shut down right here, and there's a very sharp contrast between the moister environment here and this big old ridge that is situated out here to the storm's east. And again, because of that, this is preventing some of that outflow, and this will be inducing some dry air during the next several days. Now, on the GFS forecast, again, we can take a look here at the steering flow and what's going to be generally steering the storm. So right now, the main steering components over top of the storm is this ridge of high pressure that is around to the north. And right now, that is generally creating a west and northwest general motion, something like this. And on this forecast path, which is basically a certainty, Bermuda will be missed by the worst part of the storm. Now, what's going to be happening, we notice this ridge, or I'm sorry, this trough that is now approaching the Great Lakes. This is now moving towards the northeast United States and the Canadian Maritimes. And this will be kind of catching the storm and carrying it towards the northeast. So we notice that by tomorrow, we notice how this trough is now digging all the way down in here as part of a front that is on the southern tail end of this over here. And this is now beginning to turn the storm generally towards the north-northwest like that. Again, the main axis of this ridge is now positioned over Atlantic Canada and Greenland. So the steering direction is now out of the north-northwest. Again, as this trough approaches, it's beginning to now carry it, eroding this ridge here to the east, and now beginning to turn the storm more northerly and eventually towards the northeast like such. And on this forecast path here on the GFS, this does actually come close or make a direct landfall here on Atlantic Canada on some of the areas over there. And this could be a very significant problem because, again, this will create some storm surge issues. Certainly going to have a lot of that. You can see some of these significant wave heights are well over about 40 feet. And because of that, there's going to be, again, these rip currents. Storm surge is going to be a big problem. We notice even right now that some of the water is already beginning to come up here across Florida and across the entire East Coast. This is within about 30 hours from now. Currently, again, some of that is already beginning to be pushed in. So this will create some rip currents, dangerous swell conditions. Surf will be fun. But, you know, everybody is reminded that this is going to be a problem in terms of the fact that this can create dangerous rip currents. You can see wave heights just off of Cape Cod here and Long Island could be in upwards of about 11 to 13 feet. And that is certainly nowhere where we have it at the moment. So there is some general risks involved here. Again, the main threat right now is going to be for Atlantic Canada, dealing with the potential of a landfalling storm or hurricane in that vicinity within the next few days or so. Shifting gears back out to the Gulf of Mexico, we have a new system that has just appeared on our radar during the last several days. This has been designated Invest Area 91L and now has an 80% chance of developing as this approaches the Florida coastline within the next 12 to 24 hours or so. Take a look here at the visible satellite imagery. We notice that, again, the storm is not really well organized. We have an outflow boundary that is kind of stretching out of the storm here. This to me indicates that, again, we don't really have a tremendous amount of air that is flowing into the storm. Instead, we have air that is kind of rushing out and away from it. But what we do notice here, if we go and jump out to the water vapor satellite imagery, we notice that, again, there is some pretty good outflow on the northern side here. And again, this is kind of getting some aided help because this trough that's digging in here is creating that diffluent flow aloft to the north of the storm. And that's creating that upper level, partial upper level anticyclone. But we don't really have a tremendous amount of dry air. More so that, again, though, in the mid-levels, there's a bit of dry air. But at the surface, there's a relatively moist layer which these storms are having to work with. Now, if we take a look here at the radar, what we notice is, again, we do have some semblance of rotation in here. Again, there is a circulation that is in here. Now, this will be heading in the general direction of Panama City or Port St. Joe. Again, there is some flash flood warnings, special marine warnings, even had an earlier tornado warning out here in this area. Again, there is a marginal risk for severe storms from about Eglin Air Force Base all the way down through portions of the northern coast here of Florida. And again, this stretches into parts of southern Georgia as well across the Interstate 10 corridor. Again, this is the same route that we just traveled to cover Hurricane Ida the last few days. But again, generally speaking, this will be moving to the northeast like this. And again, the upper level environment is not going to be all that favorable. We take a look at the H4 forecast. This is valid for about 21 hours in the future from now. This is this is actually today. So this is at about 21Z or 5 p.m. this evening. And we can tell that, again, the upper level environment just isn't all that conducive for additional strengthening. At first glance, we have this approaching trough here. And again, the storm is positioned generally in the entrance region, in the right front entrance region of this trough, which means that there's locally going to be higher shear down here. Again, there is diffluent flow aloft. We can tell these higher shear values here, about 80 to 90 knots of increased shear, and that is helping to create that outflow expansion on the northern side. We also have the problem here of the storm down here in the East Pacific that is going to be creating a little bit of shear as well and connecting into the bottom of this trough. So there's not really going to be additional strengthening, and from there on, it will be moving into the southeast United States and off the coast here where some redevelopment is possible. But again, it really depends and remains to be seen what exactly of this inner core is going to be left by the time this gets over here within the next day or two. So again, a lot to watch here with the system, but again, the main threats for this is going to be heavy rainfall and again, the potential for a few tornadoes and some gusty winds, but overly not really super concerned about this. But again, the flooding potential and the threat for a few tornadoes can certainly, disrupt your day for sure. All right. With that being said, hope you have a great rest of your afternoon and evening. Of course, I am Mike O'Malley. I'll talk to you guys again some more tomorrow.